Hi there, fellow AI automators. Welcome to Let's Automate It, AI and Automation for Non-Techies. You're here with Robin, and today we're going to dive into one of our favorite topics, and that is actually working with Appify. Let me introduce you to Appify if you don't know about Appify. Appify is a marketplace for scrapers, for web scrapers. Let's pretend you want to scrape LinkedIn or Instagram or any social media platform or Google Maps or just the web or almost anything you can dream of. Appify is a marketplace of specially built web scrapers to scrape all these various platforms, TikTok, website, Amazon, etc., etc. They call them actors, they don't call them scrapers, but they're finely tuned to scrape a particular set of data from a particular platform and return that in JSON. Very, very useful, and we use it a tremendous amount here in our business. Now, one of the challenges that lots of people have, I've had it in the past as well, and this is what this workflow you're seeing on the screen now is designed to meet that challenge, and that is timing out. If you scrape a large data set with Appify, and it's going to take a very long time to run, often you'll have timeout issues with the node, with the workflow, within the NA10 actually timing out, and you're getting an error in your NA10 workflow before you get the results. And the workflow you're seeing on the screen, which we're about to walk through step by step, is the correct way to scrape Appify, particularly if you are working with a large data set. So let's dive in. Let's have a closer look at Appify. If you're already familiar with Appify and you just want to know how to scrape large data sets using this workflow that you see here on the screen, you can jump ahead in the video. But if you're new to Appify, let me give you a brief introduction to what Appify is all about. So let's head over there first, and then we'll come back here and we'll look at this workflow to get the scrape started. And then we'll dive into this workflow over here to look at how we manage that job that is being run within Appify. So let's head back over to Appify to give you an introduction. So let's go to console. If you haven't done it before, you might need to create an account. You do get free data every single month, so you don't need to put your credit card in. But go ahead and set up an account. And once you've set up an account, you'll come to a platform like this, a dashboard like this, where you can actually go and have a look here at actors, and you can browse through and search for all the different actors that are available. An actor is a specially designed web scraper. So we're going to be working with this web scraper today, the Google Maps email extractor. It's a lovely tool in that it actually searches inside of Google Maps for listings and then enriches that data with an email address if it can find it. So we're going to be working with that one. So let's click into that. Now, we're going to go ahead and configure this here in Appify, and then I'm going to show you how to configure it in N8N so you can actually trigger these scrapes without having to come over to Appify and actually do it within N8N. But let's start here, and as you can see, we've got a little manual section. We're in input manual, and we're just going to fill out this information. So I want to do a search for plumbers, and the location I want to search in is Cape Town, South Africa. And for the sake of this demo, so it doesn't take too long, I'm going to limit this to 10, but you may want to push this up to a larger number if you're looking to scrape a lot of data. And as this particular video is all about scraping large data sets, that you probably have that need and you'll want to push this up larger. We're going to look in English language. Let's just, we don't really want to get into more precise categories. We don't want to get into geolocation. We're keeping it simple. We're just going to have a look at some run options. And I'm just going to configure this so the bill doesn't get away from us. I'm just going to say, let's give me a maximum of 10 items that we'll be charged for. So you can see what we've got here. This is like going to Google Maps and doing a search in Google Maps. I'm searching for all the plumbers in Cape Town, South Africa. Give me 10 results coming back. I want to search in English, and I want 10 results. You can break these down into deeper categories if you want to on this particular one. Every actor has a slightly different setup, so you'll need to check on these each time. But once you've set this up, you could actually hit save and start, and the scrape would start. But seeing as we're automators, we probably want to do this from N8N. So let's go ahead and do that. So the easiest way to do that is once you've set up your basics, go ahead and click into this JSONs tab. And here you're going to see this little set of JSON at the moment. So now that you know that's here, well, first of all, let's break it down. You can see English, Cape Town, South Africa, you can see the results of our manual configuration showing there in that JSON file. So we're going to use that in N8N. But before we can go any further, let's head back over to N8N and get ready to activate this workflow. So let me just find my N8N again. Here it is. Okay, so don't worry about this big workflow over here. We'll come back to that. We're going to be focusing on this workflow at the top of the screen. I'm just going to be manually triggering this at the moment. So I'm just using a manual trigger. You could use a form field where you fill out a form. You could trigger this a host of ways via a webhook, but we're just going to trigger manually. And I've got a set node here. Now, if you're familiar with N8N, you'll know what a set node is. So I've got a set node in here. And what I've put into this set node is just the same kind of data that you've just seen us configure on Apify. So I've put in here search term, typed in plumber. Location is hard written that in, and I've written here in Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm limiting it to 10. And the language I am wanting to search in is English. Those are exactly the same as the parameters you just saw in the Apify setup. So that's just so that we can mimic the input that we would be putting into Apify. We can start it here. Of course, if you had a web form before this, you would map these fields to the results of the web form, and you'd pull these in via an expression, and you'd populate this data that way. I'm just run this now. So I've got my search terms coming in, and here I am using an HTTP node. So actually, let me go ahead and recreate this. Let's not do that. Let's go and recreate the next step. So what we want to do now is actually activate Appify. Now, there is an Appify community node, but I'm going to use the HTTP request node because you may not be able to install the community node if you are on the cloud version. So I've got a new HTTP request in here. And what we want to do is come down here to send body, open that up. We want to have this on JSON, and we want to change this over to using JSON. And what we're going to do, go back over to Appify. Whoops. Let's go back over to Appify here, and I'm just going to copy all of this JSON now. So that's copied. Let's come back over to our N8N, and I'm just going to paste that in there. And what I also want to do, just for the sake of this demo, remember what I'm doing here is duplicating this node over here so you can see it being built. So, and the job of this is to initiate that Appify scrape. So I've got that data coming in. Let's just make sure you're on expression here, expand this, and now we just want to swap these hard-coded items out for what we're pulling in from our set node. So location, the number of results we're after, the search term, let's just get rid of that extra P in there. Oops, let's try that again. Search term, dropping that in right here. There you go, search term. And we can see now that this is busy building on the side. You can see we've got language, Cape Town, South Africa, plumbers. So we're busy. You're seeing this is the expression, and these are the results of that expression coming through. Everything is green, so it means it's all working, and we can actually see the data coming in here. So that's looking great. That's what we're after. Okay, so that's us having set up the search criteria. But now we need to go ahead and actually set up the technical side of being able to click to Appify. So we're going to need data for these sections here. So to do that, let's head back over to Appify. Okay, and we're going to click up into the corner here where it says API. And we're going to go to API endpoints. And what we want to do here is we want to run the actor. There are other options here, but we are using a more sophisticated workflow to handle the timing of this workflow. So we really just need the simplest option here, which is a post to this request. And so we're just going to copy all of that. We don't need the token, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. So I'm just going to copy that, and it's going to be a post request. So let's come back over to Appify. When you hit this, change that to a post request. And then here, we're just going to pop in that URL. And now here, we need our credential. Now, we've got a dedicated video all about how to get your N8N credential. In fact, let me see if I can't find that. If I write it here, here it is. So if you go to our channel and just do a search here for set up your Appify credentials. I see we got a spelling mistake in our title, 1P on Appify. Set up your Appify credentials in N8N. It'll show you exactly how to do that. So jump onto our channel, Let's Automate It, and check that out. Super simple. Grab an API key, and in the credential, you just need to type in the word authorization and then paste in your API key. And this is a header auth, generic header auth credential. So if we come back over to our credential here, to our workflow, I'm going down to a generic credential and I'm going to click through into header auth, and now I'm looking for our Appify credentials. This is what I've set up earlier, but if you come into here, you'll see exactly the same there. And then I've got the API key, which you can get from your settings inside of the Appify dashboard. So that's all set up now. And if we go and have a look here at the HTTP that I made earlier, meanwhile, here's one I made earlier. Click into that, you'll see we've got exactly the same endpoints. We've got all our credentials set up as well as our JSON mapped in. So I'm just going to keep the one we've got already, but that's how it has been scraped. So when I hit go on this particular one, it's going to initiate the actor and start it running in Appify. Now, we're doing a relatively small scrape here because we have only set this to be 10 results. But if you hadn't set a number here and you were searching for all the plumbers in a country, that's a pretty popular business vocation. So you might get thousands and thousands of reply, and it might take many minutes, even hours, for this Appify scraper to finish running. And the issue often we have is that the Appify, the actual N8N workflow will time out before it gets finished. If you're doing a smaller scrape, you won't have that issue. So in order to get around that, we are using this workflow here. And let me talk you through it. So what we're actually doing is we're going to execute this workflow as a sub workflow. So you can see here, we're calling a workflow. And if I click into this, I'm calling a workflow from a list. Apify for large data sets is what I've called it. I've actually got it in another canvas, but just for ease of reference, I put a copy of it here onto this canvas. And that's why you'll see that this particular execute node is grayed out so that it doesn't actually trigger when I run this right now. But this is just to make it easier for you to follow and see what is going on. So pulled on a execute sub workflow. That's what I've pulled on, and it is an action to execute a sub workflow. That's what this is all about. And then I've just gone and from the list looked up for that one. All right, let's walk through this one that's going through. So what's going to happen here is all the information that's coming in here will now be passed into this node, and it'll be able to trigger. The result of us calling the Appify actor, the result of this one, which we'll do in a moment, will be a run ID. And we'll use that run ID here in this node. So the run ID will be passed from here into this. From there, it'll arrive in that sub node over here, ideally in another workflow. And then we're going to use that that actor ID here in this node to be able to check the status of that scrape, the status of that run, to see if it's finished, if there's been a problem with it. And depending on what the result is of that, we're going to take various actions. So I hope that makes sense. So let's jump in here. So we've got a little HTTP node. Okay, and we've got a get method set up, and we're hitting an Apify endpoint, api.appify v2 actor runs, and here we're passing in the run ID. I'll show you that in a moment. And then afterwards, you've got this little question mark, and we're going wait for finish equals 60. That means that this is just going to wait 60 seconds. It's going to wait 1 minute before moving on. And you can see I've hooked up my credentials. I'm not sending any information over at this point, but so that's why it can just be a get request. So that has been done. Then it's going to go into the switch node. After 60 seconds, it'll jump into the switch node and it'll check the status of the run. And the status can be one of several. Either can be succeeded, aborted, timed out, failed, or still running. Those are the possible outcomes that Appify allows for. So we've got this switch node status set up, and depending on which status it gets, it's going to route it. If it's after after 1 minute, it goes here. If after 1 minute, it actually has finished running, it's going to pass it back to this node, which will push it back into the original workflow, which can continue. So that will happen here. If it hasn't finished running yet, it's going to go down this little running branch here. We've got a wait step here of 15 seconds. You could set that wait step to be any duration you like. And after 15 seconds, it's going to pass it back around again here to this node, which will wait another 60 seconds and then check again. And the moment it's finished running, it's going to go out there. If it hasn't finished running, it'll just cycle through again. And this way we can handle very large data sets without N8N timing out, because we're actually running different nodes every moment, every option. I find N8N has issues if you leave it on one node for a long period of time, and then N8N can get grumpy. Whereas if it's actually jumping node to node and there's data moving around on the canvas, it tends to be a lot more stable. At least that has been my experience, which is why I built this flow to stop that from happening. If we have a timeout on the workflow, sometimes sometimes an actor, a scraper on Appify will time out itself due to settings in Appify. Then it'll come out this timed out branch. And here we can use an HTTP node, the post request to this endpoint, which is basically the same endpoint with the run ID on the end with /resurrect on the end. And that is going to resurrect the run, get it starting again, pick it up from where it left off. So that's an endpoint you want to keep an eye on if you want to be able to do that. And that's pretty important because, again, timeout issues are common when you're scraping large data sets. And this will help you not waste all those credits that you ran on Appify. You can pick it up again. And then it'll keep cycling through here until ultimately it is done. Now, once it's done here on this node, it'll pass the information back as an output here on this execute node. And all we're doing here is capturing that data and we're writing it into a spreadsheet. So there's the theory, there's the talk. Let's run this and actually now see what happens. And I'm going to hit play on this now. It'll start the actor and it will actually, let me just save this. And it's going to go over to a different canvas where the same workflow is waiting to handle it. Let's go and execute this workflow. You can see it running. And now it's passed it over to the sub workflow. So the sub workflow is busy doing its job. Let's let this workflow finish. We'll talk through the results here quickly, and then we'll go over to the sub workflow and look at the execution data for this one so we can see how it worked. But this is busy cycling away here, waiting for the sub workflow, which is down here, but in another canvas to finish running. And when it does, it'll come across. So by the power of editing, we'll jump across right now. And there we can see we got a result. We got 10 items back because remember we did ask for 10 items. So let's go have a look at those results that came back. Here it is. Here's a plumber. Here's a plumber. We've got all this information that we've got back from the plumber, all kinds of things that we've pulled back from our Google Map scrape. Remember the actor was scraping Google Maps. We've got all kinds of information. So what we're going to do now is actually create a Google Sheet with all of these items as all of these headings as column headings inside a Google Map Google Sheet, sheet. And then we'll be able to write this data to it. And then we can use that data for our marketing or for whatever purposes we are after. So to do that, I've set up a little set node here. And I've just created categories for each one of these. Now, you don't need to do this. You could go straight from the execute Apify scrape node and the results that come out of here. You could jump straight across to going directly into your Google Sheet. But I always like to have set data every now and again. When I generate new data, I like to just kind of set those parameters, capture that data. So it just keeps my flows more clean. So we're going to just go ahead and run this. And now you can see we've got data underneath each one of these categories. It's pretty much the same as what we had before, but there's all our different data points coming through. Then what we're doing here is using a Google Sheets node. So I'm just going to type in Sheets here. I'm going to go to Google Sheets, and we are going append row in a sheet, which means add a new row in a sheet, which is what this node is doing. And hopefully you are able to connect your credential. If not, go into here and follow along with the documentation. Here it is right here. Follow along with the documentation to get yourself set up with credentials to be able to access your Google Sheet. Of course, you could write this information to an Airtable. You could write it to an Excel sheet using some Outlook tools. Wherever you want to store this information, it doesn't matter as long as you can access it. So we've got our credentials set up. We are looking at a sheet within a document. Our operation is a pen row, and we're going from list. And I've actually set up a Google map, a Google Sheet for us. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. So I've got this Google Sheet set up, and you can see business name, category, etc., all set up, ready for us already just to receive this information. And you can actually see the workflow has run, and it's populated all the data we got from our Appify actor that has scraped Google Maps. It has now pushed it here into this database, this spreadsheet that is acting as a database for us. So you're going to want to go ahead and set up a Google Sheet. Very, very simple to set up a Google Sheet with all of the headings of the information that you want to capture. And then what you're going to do is link to that sheet. You can just use from list, and you can search your list of sheets. If you set up your credential correctly, you'll be able to access that. The sheet, we've only got one sheet on that, so we're just going to choose sheet 1, and we're going to match each column manually. And then this will pull in, as you sync this, it'll pull in the headings of every single column inside your Google Sheet. And then it's a simple matter of just dragging in the data to the correct component as you go. And if you do get some red ones here, it means that the data is likely to be undefined and that the data set didn't pull through any information for that. The Google Map data scrape didn't return anything for some of those. So here we have all the items, and this is run already. And when you run this, it will push it to Google Maps Google Sheets. I keep saying Google Maps, apologies. It'll push it to Google Sheet as we have just seen. But the real focus of today's workflow, by the way, if you want to go and check out our channel here, if I'm going a little bit fast, you have this video here, how to scrape leads from Google Maps with Appify. We'll be going into more detail, a little bit slower, about how you can do that job. So definitely go and check out this video if you're more interested in how to do that and actually get more deeply into that, as well as I think we do have some other videos on that as well. Let me see if I could find it quickly. I'm not going to waste time here, but we have some other videos as well on doing some deep scraping on getting some leads. But this is a great video to go check out if you want more in-depth on how to be using Appify to generate leads and to email people from that data. But let's go have a look here now at this sub workflow. So I'm just going to click on to, let's go back into my overview here. And I've got this sub workflow here called Appify for large data sets. I'm going to click into that. And here you will see, do not worry about this at the bottom. Let me zoom in a little bit. Do not worry. Whoops, that's too much. I'll try that again. Zoom out a bit more. Hopefully you can read that. This is just some scratchpad stuff. Don't worry about that at the bottom. But here we have our workflow. Let's go into the executions. And we'll look at our most recent execution, which is what has just run for us when we ran this last one live here on the video. So let's have a look at what's going on. I click into this, and we've got this data coming in. And this is all the information about the scrape. It's not the results of the scrape. It's just showing information that it is busy running at the moment. So we are looking for, actually forget one of these, ID, actor ID, or user ID. I'm not sure which one it is. Let's just double check, because I know I've got it set it up here. We want JSON data ID. So it's this information. This is the critical information that we want to be pulling in. This is how we identify the actor, the scraper that is running. So we're going to use this URL, Appify active runs, and we're just going to insert this JSON ID expression, and you can do that by dragging this in. I can't do it now because I'm in the execution list, but if you in the editor, you'll be able to do that. And I've added on this little wait for finish 60 at the end. We've seen this set up now. It's a get method. Hook up your credential. Simple as that. And now let it run. Now this will run here, and you'll need to pull on a switch node. And for the switch node, you want to pull on JSON data status. So when you go and check it, you're going to get this status every single time. So you just want to be able to drag this status into this, and then the string is equal to succeeded. String is equal to succeeded, and then otherwise it's equal to aborted, otherwise it's equal to timed out, or it's equal to failed, or it's equal to running. So that's how you want to go and set those up. Then what's going to happen is as this cycles through, it's going to go into the switch node, it'll check the status, and then run them out of the branch as appropriate. If it's running, still running, you're going to want to add a wait step. Let me go and jump into the editor here to show you. So you're going to want to add a wait step. That's as simple as typing in wait. There it is. Pull on a wait step, a wait node, and configure this for whatever time interval makes sense for you. We've gone with 15 seconds here because in addition to that, we have there 15 seconds. We have our 60-second delay every time this checks as well. So so between the two, it's checking every 1 minute 15 seconds. But depending on the size of your scrape, you may want to make that longer or shorter, and it'll run through again and again and again. Here in the resurrect, as we mentioned earlier, you're going to want to put this API key in, and this API endpoint, I should say. And you just want to insert here the JSON data default dataset ID, and that is the ID of that run that we've been mentioning. Pull that through, load up your credential, and that way it will resurrect that workflow and resurrect that actor, and you'll be able to check again. And once it's finished running, you're going to want to put this in here, a get method. You're going to load up this endpoint right here. And the difference here is you've got /items on the end, /items, and load up your credential. And what that's going to do is once this is finished running, this information that comes out of here will be passed back to the parent workflow. The parent workflow has passed the information in here to the sub workflow. And then this HTTP node, when it's done, will pass information back out to the parent workflow. And that way, you can manage large data sets without having issues with timing out, because this workflow will keep running, and it will run as a sub account as well. Now, what you can do as well here, what I have done before, is actually pull this into the main workflow, and instead of having this execute node here, this execute sub workflow node, I'll actually come directly from the HTTP node that triggers the actor, and I'll just actually put it on the same canvas and inject that straight into here, and then everything is on one canvas and I'm not using a sub workflow. Sometimes that is necessary if you're running really large data sets, because sometimes the parent workflow can actually time out while waiting for this workflow to run, in which case I'll put it on the same canvas. So that let me show you what I mean here. We'll go back into our original one here, and here this is the HTTP node that's calling the canvas, and then instead of going to this workflow, I'll actually then inject it directly down into this node over here and let this run. And then when this is finished here, I'll loop the results of that back into my set node. So basically, you replace this execute sub Appify scrape flow with this entire flow. But I'll only do that for very, very large data sets, because as I say, sometimes this just running for ages by itself can also cause timeout issues. But invariably this works, and I've got this set up in a modular format like this because I like to be able to call this workflow from many other different workflows that I've got in my N8N canvas, in my N8N dashboard, and therefore I don't have to rebuild this each time. So that's the thinking along those lines. So there you have it. That is a brief overview of how you can actually handle scraping very large data sets from Appify without timeout issues. And essentially, you are just polling it every so often, every minute and 15 seconds. We're polling the run, checking its status and reacting to its status until finally it's completed, and then passing it back. I hope that worked out for you. I hope that makes sense. And if you've been struggling with Appify, maybe this is the secret for you. If you want to grab this workflow and that Google Sheet, you can do so from our community. Let's Automate a community. It's a very intimate, very personal, face-to-face community where we really do become friends and everyone gets to know each other. This full workflow the JSON, this Google Sheet that you've seen over here, along with all kinds of other workflows and guidance and training and courses and tools. Oh my Lord, our community is full of value. Jump into that. If you're starting out with NA10, you're just getting started, you're trying to get your head around this AI and automation space, then we are the community you want to be part of. So join us over there. I hope you found this workflow useful to you. Until next week, good morning, good day, good night, whatever you are, wherever you are, whatever time it is where you are. And I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.